day, grade 9 students. How are you today? I hope you're doing fine. What a wonderful day to learn and explore amazing science. This is Girly Flores, your science teacher broadcaster from Santa Ana National High School. Be sure that you are seated comfortably and can clearly listen to this broadcast so that you can understand very well our lesson for today. Do you have with you your self-learning module, a pen, and a notebook? That's great! Our topic for today is about non-Mendelian inheritance. Do you have an idea about this topic? If none, do not worry. This is designed for you to understand non-Mendelian inheritance. So just relax while listening as we learn together. Are you ready, grade 9 learners? The topic is based on most essential learning competency of the Department of Education, which is to explain the different patterns of non-Mendelian inheritance. From this competency, we are going to learn non-Mendelian pattern of inheritance that includes incomplete dominance and codominance. At this point, prepare your notebook and your pen. Let us have a quick review on these important words that are useful in our lesson. I will give the definition and try to write your answer in your notebook. The first word, a different form of a gene that controls a certain trait. It starts with the letter A and ends with the letter E. What's the word? Correct, it's allele. Next word, are reproductive cells that unite during sexual reproduction to form a new cell called zygote. The word is, it starts with the letter G and ends with the letter E. Very good, it's gamete. Third word, an organism's complete set of heritable genes or genes that can be passed down from parents to offspring. These genes help encode the characteristics that are physically expressed in an organism, such as the hair, the color, and the height. It starts with the letter G and ends with the letter E. That's amazing, learners! The word is genotype. Number 4, an organism's observable characteristics, such as the color, the size, and the height. The word starts with the letter P and ends with the letter E. That's right. The word is phenotype. Number 5 is a word that refers to a particular gene that has identical or the same alleles on both homologous chromosomes. The word starts with the letter H and ends with the letter S. Exactly. The answer is homozygote. Number 6, an individual having two identical alleles of a particular gene or genes. The word starts with the letter H and ends with the letter E. Great. The word is homozygote. Let's move forward. Number 7 is a word that refers to a particular gene that has two different alleles. It starts with the letter H and ends with the letter S. You got it right. It's heterozygous. Number 8, an individual having two different alleles of a particular gene or genes. It starts with the letter H and ends with the letter E. Great. It's heterozygote. The last word means the method by which one can determine the possible genotype and phenotype when two parents are crossed. It's a two-word. The first word starts with the letter P and the second word starts with the letter S. Very good, learner. The answer is Punnett square. How to make a Punnett square? First, determine the traits of the parent organism. Then, Determine the gametes for each trait. Second, draw a Punnett square. Third, put each of the parent genotype above each small box at the top of the big square, and the other parents on the left side next to each small box. Number 4, have each box inherit letters from its row and column. And number 5, interpret the Punnett square by identifying the genotype of the offspring. Next is to identify the phenotype of the offspring, followed by determining the phenotype and genotypic percentage. And remember, each box represents 25% probability of having that kind of offspring. Great job, grade 9 learners, for keeping these words in your hearts and in your mind. Now, let us begin digging the gems. Is it possible that a pink flower will produce from the cross-pollination of pure white and pure red flower? Let us find out. In Mendelian patterns of inheritance, the effect of the recessive gene is not observed when the dominant gene is present. But there are certain traits that do not always follow the Mendelian principles of heredity. For the traits that Mendel have studied, one allele is completely dominant over the other. Thus, the phenotype of the resulting heterozygote offspring is identical to that of the homozygous dominant parent. However, there are some genes in heterozygote offsprings that do not share the phenotype of either parent. To better understand, let us consider this genetic problem. When pure red flower 4 o'clock plant is crossed with a white flower 4 o'clock plant, the offspring will produce neither red or white flower. Instead, all flowers will be pink. Question A. What are the genotypes of the offspring? What do you think, grade 9 learners? Question B. What is the probability of having pink offspring? Question B. What is the probability of having pink offsprings? Question C. Identify the phenotypic and genotypic ratios. Let us try to see and discover. Using a Punnett square, it would look like the figure. We have a red flower with homozygous dominant alleles represented by 2 capital letter R. Red is the phenotype, while 2 capital letter R are the genotype. We have the white flower with homozygous dominant allele represented by 2 capital letter W. White is the phenotype, while the 2 capital W are the genotype. The result of the crosses with a true breeding is pink flower, with heterozygous alleles represented by 1 capital letter R and 1 capital letter W, which means it carries the allele of a red and white. Pink is the phenotype and RW is the genotype. So question A, what are the genotype of the offspring? A genotype is an individual's collection of genes. In the given example, 2 capital letter R and 2 capital letter W are the possible phenotypes of a 4 o'clock flower. When a true breeding, pure red 4 o'clock flower plant represented by RR crosses with a true breeding, pure white flower 4 o'clock plant represented by WW, their offsprings are all pink flowers, which are heterozygotes. They either produce red or white flower plants because either of the two is completely dominant. You are correct. So the answer for question letter A is RW. Question B. What is the probability of having pink offsprings? All offsprings are pink. Therefore, the probability is 100%. Question letter C. Identify the phenotypic and genotypic ratio. In incomplete dominance, one half of the gametes of the heterozygotes, pink flowers, carry the allele for the red flower, and the other one half of it carry the allele for white flower. Now that you have already idea, what is incomplete dominance? That's amazing, learners! Incomplete dominance is a form of intermediate inheritance in which one allele for a specific trait is not completely dominant over the other allele. This results in a third phenotype, in which one allele for a specific trait is not completely dominant over the other allele. This results in a third phenotype, in which the expressed physical trait of the offsprings is intermediate between the parents' phenotype. Do you think the alleles blended to make pink flowers? The answer is no. In incomplete dominance, it is only the phenotype that is intermediate. The blended traits are coded by two alleles inherited from both parents. The red and the white alleles remain separate and distinct. What does it mean? Excellent learners! Half the gametes of the pink 4 o'clock flower carry the allele for red and half carry the allele for white. Now, what if two pink flower is crossed? What is the phenotype of a heterozygous 4 o'clock flower? What are the genotypic and phenotypic ratios and the percentage probability? Let us answer this by making a Punnett square. The allele for pink flower is represented by RW. Therefore, we have R and W. The resulting offsprings would be homozygous red, two heterozygous pink, and one homozygous white. What is the phenotype of a heterozygous 4 o'clock flower? Exactly, it's pink because it is made up of two different alleles. What are the genotypic and phenotypic ratios and percentage probability of the offsprings? The result of a heterozygote self-cross can still be predicted. Both the genotypic and the phenotypic ratio is 1:2:1. In this case, the genotypic ratio would be 1RR, 2RW, and 1WW. And the phenotypic ratio would be 1 red, 2 pink, and 1 white flower. And the percentage probability are 25% for red, 50% for pink, and 25% for white. Remember, in incomplete dominance, only the phenotype of the heterozygote is blended. The alleles of the parents are still distinct and separate from each other. And the genotypic ratio also becomes the phenotypic ratio since half of the gametes of the offspring carry half both of the parents. You have previously learned that incomplete dominance is a form of intermediate inheritance in which one allele for a specific trait is not completely dominant over the other allele. Am I right? Now, let's proceed to the next lesson. We are going to learn another pattern of inheritance that does not follow Mendel's principle. That is codominance. Would you like to know more about it? Definitely, it's a yes. Have you seen a flower with both red and white in the petals? How about a dog with a white and black spot? How about a chicken with black and white feather? Or a cattle with a red and white coat? Have you wondered why they exist? If yes, great, because this is the right topic for you. These are just few examples of non-Mendelian inheritance, which is codominance. What is codominance? To understand codominance, let us consider this genetic problem. A red bull, which is a male cattle with a genotype of CR, mated with a white female cow with a genotype of CW. Predict the possible offspring by filling up the Punnett square. In cattle, there are 3 different phenotypes. Those with red coats with the genotypes of CR are homozygous for the red coat allele. Those with the white coats with the genotype of CW are homozygous for the white coat allele. Lastly, those cattle with red hairs mixed with white hairs are said to be heterozygous and appears roan with a genotype of CW. The appearance of roan coat is due to the codominance of the red and the white color alleles. In the given problem, using a Punnett square, it would look like this figure. We have white with a genotype of CW, red with a genotype of CR. The offspring would be roan coat, a red and white with a genotype of CW. The percentage probability is 100%, since in the figure, all offspring has a red and a white spot. What have you observed in the Punnett square? You are correct. As shown in the Punnett square, if a pure red bull meets with a pure white cow, all their offspring will express both the alleles of the red bull and a white cow that is roan coat. Based from the illustration, what is codominance? Both colors or phenotypes are seen in the offspring. Very good, learners. Codominance is a form of inheritance where the alleles of a gene pair in a heterozygote offsprings are fully expressed or exhibited. As a result, the offspring's phenotype show both of the parent's phenotype. Now, let us compare these 2 non-Mendelian inheritance. It is incomplete dominance when the phenotype of the offspring is somewhere in between the phenotype of the parents. In the case of the flower, if the parent's phenotype is red and white, the offspring is pink. It is codominance when both alleles are expressed equally in the phenotype of the heterozygote. In the case of the flower, if the parent's phenotype is red and white, the offspring is a flower with a red and a white color on its petals. In incomplete dominance, a completely dominant allele does not exist, while in codominance, both alleles are dominant. That was great, grade 9 learners. A good practice makes perfect. Now that you are familiar with incomplete dominance and codominance, I'm sure that you are ready to answer the activity found in your learning module for this topic. Remember, take your time in reading the lessons carefully. Follow the directions and instructions in the activities and exercise diligently. And if you have questions, feel free to message to your teacher through text, email, or messenger. You did well today, grade 9 learners. Once again, this is Teacher Girly saying, keep learning for a better future. Good day, everyone.